This is Rusky Ed with lesson number 32 on Russian nouns. You want to learn Russian but you think it's too tough, too confusing and all that stuff. Funny looking letters, what's that you said? It's time to learn Russian with Rusky Ed. In this lesson, we will be discussing the months of spring, and so it makes pretty good sense for us to start this lesson with the Russian word for spring, which is vesna. That's right, vesna is the Russian word for spring. Now, in the last lesson, we decided to save the month of March for the spring, and so now I will introduce to you the Russian word for March, which is mart. Yes, mart is the Russian word for March. Very similar. In fact, the Russian word is slightly shorter than the English word. In fact, the Russian word for April is very similar to the English word for April also. April in Russian is April. And the same is true for May. In fact, the Russian word for May is almost identical to the English word for May. The only difference is that instead of using a Y, we use the I kratkai. And so we have May and May. Now, as long as we're talking about months, we might as well learn the Russian word for month, which is месяц. Month in English is месяц in Russian, месяц. And of course, a month is made up of several weeks. And so now we will learn the Russian word for week, which is неделя. Phrases. It is now time for our phrases. And our first phrase will be the Russian way of saying this week. And the way that we say this week in Russian is to say na etoi nedelye. Now, of course, during the winter and the beginning of spring, it can often be quite chilly outside. And the Russian way of saying outside it is cold is na ulitsa haladno. And now we have reached the end of lesson number 32 on Russian nouns, and so this is Rusky Ed signing off with До свидания. It's time to learn Russian with Rusky Ed.